For this month, we are going to cave into the sway of pop culture. Yes, that loud part of the internet, which has driven us to desperate measures of trying to catch up with the Wuthering Heights movie drama. Before this polarizing and hilarious 2026 film adaptation was released on Valentine's Day, Wuthering Heights was a book written by Emily Brontë, published in 1847, 179 years ago. How is this old, bleak story of human darkness and its manifestation in the weather, relationships, environment, dimensions, still captivating audiences and creating new ones? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome back to Girl, What Did I Just Read? The podcast where we read books by women and queer authors, spiral about fictional people, and always admit that the problem is ever-changing, but usually men. We read the difficult and stodgy classics, watch the adaptations for y'all, and ask ourselves why anyone thought Wuthering Heights was ever romantic. Changing our script a little bit with this episode being an incisive review of the woman who created Wuthering Heights 2026, Emerald Fennell, and various other Wuthering Heights movie adaptations, which were either faithful or just tanked. Anyway, welcome back. As always, I have the lovely Shaggy with us today. And I'm Katie.
So guys, before I go into what the drama of Wuthering Heights is, let us take a moment to appreciate my and Katie's fits. I mean, look at us. We are not just matching because we are wearing red. And it's not just coincidence and it's not just astrology. The fact that both of our minds decided to wear red, this kind of shows, one, how much of the idea of passion and desire and craziness and madness and mania and all of these like electrifying feelings, what better color than red to actually sum up any kind of tumultuous, turbulent, tempestuous feelings and thoughts that that we have as humans, that Emily Brontë manifested in the form of her wild, wild work. And this is how it's gonna go. So also, can we just appreciate the fact that I'm wearing a cloud pendant? Because Wuthering Heights, the wind is howling. There are gray clouds like this all over the sky. The weather is like a ghost in this movie. It is unrelenting. It haunts you and just never lets go of giving that momentary peace to humans. I don't know why this book, Wuthering Heights, was even thought of as romantic or even romantic tragic in any sense. Because honestly, this book is like a psychological horror drama. And yeah, is it because it's written by a chick? That's why it was like, romance. It has some quotes like, whatever his soul and mine are made of, they're the same. Like, did these quotes, did we project our romantic ideas on these quotes when actually a quote like this, whatever soul his and I are made of, they're the same? It sounds sinister to me. Doesn't it sound sinister? Am I tripping?
No, I agree. Absolutely. But remember, this film, the book and the films, they're not really about romance. It's about obsession. And so I think also that's why the color red works. But I mean, I went with it because, well, I didn't see the film. You did, and we'll get into that. But there's a lot of red in the costumes, in the costume design. And also Kate Bush's music video when she's wearing red. But maybe that's where Emerald Fennell was inspired by all the red imagery was from the music video for Kate Bush. And if you guys haven't seen it, it's wild. That song is, I love Kate Bush, but that is a weird song. And also, like Emerald Fennell did read the book when she was like 14. When Kate Bush made the song and the music video, she had not read, as far as I know, she had not read Wuthering Heights. And it's like both now the film was made because, Emerald Fennell, it's what she kind of remembered, what she recollected from her teenage mind when she had to read it back in high school. And I feel like it's kind of the same with Kate Bush. It's like just our own interpretation without really being anything like the original work, right? And I think that's what a lot of the and we'll get into it, some of the remakes, some of the adaptations, the film adaptations, it's whatever the director, whatever the writer kind of took from it. I just don't feel like a lot of them are really completely being faithful to the text and the obsession and the glaring issues within said text.
No, I think the color red is so important to the text, and also it's important to be shown in the movies, because against the gray, drab, dreary, stormy, um, almost inhumane weather, which is just so muted and dark and so lifeless, showing the color red is like kind of humans putting their imprint on nature, that I exist.
I
It's
like
like
that.
I exist. And it can also be a kind of an overconfident hubris, that I'm such a huge part of nature that I might even like be able to overcome the need of nature. And that's when like nature strikes back. So yep. And yeah, nature is crazy in this book, nature is crazy in this movie, and the only way to even know in those foggy moors that someone is like walking towards you, imagine someone dressed in red. Oh, chills, cinematography chills. All right. So last month, we went completely delulu in the world of murder mystery, posh lifestyles, magnificent mansions, and a really complicated detective whodunit drama by Agatha Christie. Yes, that was The Seven Dials Mystery. And what an amazing book. And yes, please appreciate the fact that we are doing this without any afternoon cocktails. Yes. Shout out to our last episode where I rant about the fact that afternoon cocktails are not socially acceptable anymore, because like that's why we say that it's 5 p.m. somewhere, because like 5 p.m. is the new accepted drinking hour. Yeah.
Well, yeah, unless it's the weekend or unless you're on vacation. And then you say it's 5 o'clock somewhere when you're like starting to drink at noon on your, cruise holiday.
All right. So there was a lot of frilly and frothy, but also like deep and mind bending and mental gymnastics drama that we got into last month. But this month, we go serious. Now we are locking in and we are standing on business. And we are standing on business when it comes to the Emily Bronte's sole literary work, Wuthering Heights. And Wuthering Heights, let me tell you, it's not just a book. No, this book is an entire beast. It's an entire quagmire of undealt feelings, and how undealt feelings can create a lot of consequences that just don't stop with one lifetime. They kind of just repeat themselves generationally, which is why I think people say that history repeats itself. Yeah. Wuthering Heights kind of shows you how generational trauma keeps repeating itself. And yeah, so this book, it has been spun in so many ways. I mean, I cannot tell you how desperately Hollywood adjacent British dramas, how much they have tried to adapt Wuthering Heights and make it palatable enough for the audience. And I know they have swayed by making it palatable by showing it as a form of romantic obsession or as a love story which has a tragic end. But no, these are just ways to make a beast seem palatable. Nope. Despite like having so many adaptations of Wuthering Heights, until now, I would say until now, till the 2026 movie drama that we are going to speak about soon, before this adaptation, I don't think there has been much noise about Wuthering Heights just as one a book, because there's a very niche class of people who are into Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights in the true sense of the term, like not as the story of obsessive love that we are sold on to. But I mean, compare her work to her sister's work, Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. We have wonderful adaptations of Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre works as a story with the public, but Wuthering Heights has been one of those tricky pieces of text that how do you even adapt so much emotion, so much internality of both humans and nature and show it visually in a way where the audience is able to connect. It's like, I think with Wuthering Heights, the audience has never been able to get a hook on it and a hook of redemption because nobody is redeemable in this book. Everyone's unlikable. Everyone does shit to each other. Everyone is villainous in some sense of the way, either a catalyst or contributory, intentional or non intentional. Like, that doesn't matter. But yeah, making this book palatable to audiences has been next to impossible, even though there are so many adaptations and even weird adaptations of this book, Wuthering Heights. But this 2026 movie, which released on Valentine's Day, it has finally, I think, it has finally given rise to a kind of understanding of how Wuthering Heights can connect with its audience without just seeming like an unlikable, unreliable story of horrible people doing horrible things to each other, but and also doing horrible things in a way which is not tantalizing to the public. Like the a lot of times they have no reason to do horrible things. They don't have a redemption arc as such. So it's like I think humans depend too much on stories which give them hope. And stories which don't give people hope, it sort of like jars the public. But I think stories like Wuthering Heights, which are more of a cautionary tale, I think these kind of stories are important just to show humans that, guys, you can be terrible. And there might not be a last minute solution. There might not be last minute Avengers to come and save us. Maybe we are our own salvation. And that's why this book has never been palatable because it shows us, like, it mirrors to us how, human life can be short, nasty, and brutish. But coming back to the movie, Wuthering Heights 2026, it has given rise to the tsunami of content and opinions on this book and on this movie. And I am so grateful that there is this fevered, almost like, everyone is like charged with electricity suddenly with respect to a 179-year-old book. Like there is the discussions around this book as if like, as if this text has not existed for almost 2 centuries. And yeah, I'm really enjoying this fevered debate. I'm loving the haters. There are very few lovers. And yeah, I'm just loving the fact that people are suddenly like, oh my god, no, Heathcliff is like this. No, character Cathy is like this. No, this is Levat. This is Levat. And in the palatability of Jane Austen, we forget that there are other more important, not more important, other contemporary important works as well, which work because they are unpalatable and which are important to be seen because they are unpalatable.
What's really impressed me, because I obviously I don't think, okay, I was going to say I don't think I've read the book. As far as I know, I haven't read the book because we decided we don't need to read it. We're going to talk about the film, the discourse that's going on right now on social media, YouTube, etc. The rise in popularity again for this. I think if I and I do know the story, trust me, because I you know, I've gone through the, let's say, the Cliff Notes again for this. I think I might have read it in high school, but also I hated all the assigned reading except for one book. There was only in high, and trust me, I was in honors. I was in advanced English. English is my thing, but I hate being forced to read stuff I don't want to read. So I would have read the Cliff Notes. But I have seen some of the adaptations in the past. The one that sticks out is the Tom Hardy one. But anyway, I really like how younger people, obviously mostly younger women, have really gotten into the debate about this and looking into the history of the times of what was going on in the area that the Brontes lived when this book was written, and also people deep diving into the Bronte sisters, especially, obviously Emily Brontë, the author, and even looking at the characters from a psychological standpoint, looking at the writer, the author from a psychological standpoint, also from they're looking at her family from a psychological standpoint, because you write what you know. Anyway, it's really awesome to see like these, not that I'm that old, but to see these young people getting into this. And it's so that's what I have liked about this becoming a thing again in pop culture, is it's sparked an interest in a lot of people. Before this, if you said book talk, I would think Sarah J. Maas and all these other like romantasy, fantasy, but it's proving that readers, especially younger readers, let's say Gen Z, aren't just into like smut and fluff and fantasy. They're into the classics. And just like those of us who were forced to read this growing up as well. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm into it. I'm into the history and I'm into the deep diving. But anyway, that's what's really also inspired me and gotten me excited about it, is seeing all these other people all these other people under the age of, let's say, 60, 50 getting into it. Because it's been really fun to listen to these scholars who've been, PhDs in this kind of stuff and have been talking about this book for ages. But it's really nice to hear fresh perspectives, whether you like the film or not, whether you like the original text or not. And actually, I will say, and I'll get into the history a little more later, but what we have now is Wuthering Heights may be a heavily edited version by Charlotte Brontë after Emily's death. So how bad, and I don't mean bad like how poorly written, how scandalous is the original text? And that's something that like I haven't seen anyone talk about, and I'd love to get my hands on, is one of the first edition prints of it before it the work was supposedly allegedly edited. Anyway, yeah. So it's this has been fun. Even though as much as I don't want to read the book, and I told you I was like, I don't want to read this book, but I really, really, really have enjoyed deep diving just the whole world, the whole subject, the genre, the background. Again, the Moors, set in Yorkshire in the earlier part of the 19th century.
Until now, Wuthering Heights was like, it was parked amongst two segments. One segment was the academic segment, who were like really into dissecting the feminist message in Wuthering Heights, or, some kind of a deep academic bent was where Wuthering Heights was resting. And of course, it was also resting with like badly made adaptations, which did not work so well, either critically or commercially. But yeah, this is the first time we are seeing the confluence of mass entertainment. The fact that Wuthering Heights has reached the level of mass entertainment, and also the fact that now it's not just in its academic robes. Now it's become an everyday conversation. Like I don't. People are suddenly telling me if I know who Heathcliff and Cathy are. Because like my friend circle knows that I read, and they're like, oh my god, do you know about these characters, and like this is based on a book? And I'm like, yeah, I kind of know, guys. I mean, I knew it like decades before you, but I kind of know.
Yeah.
And with this 2026 Wuthering Heights movie by Emerald Fennell, right?
Fennell. I know.
Fennell.
I want to say fennel too, like the vegetable fennel.
So the Wuthering Heights 2026 movie by Emerald Fennell. No.
It's Fennell.
Can you say it
Fennell.
again? Fennell.
It's
Fennell.
Fennell. Yes.
Fennell.
And also, I know how much you love Nepo babies. She's also a Nepo baby. And I can get into that later
We have to talk about it. We have to talk about it.
Yeah. That's also why it's problematic.
Okay,
I'm going to be the hater. Even though I haven't, like I said, I haven't actually read the full book. I haven't seen the film. I'm going to be probably the hater at this, because it's like I've been watching a lot of stuff.
See,
and yeah, go ahead.
You will be doing a disservice to this book by not being a hater. The book wants you to be a hater. The book wants you to understand the basis of hate in itself. So if you don't hate it, if you go from the idea of loving it, it's kind of like, how they say the psychology of people who are into true crime, it's a little different from the psychology of people who are not into true crime and who can't relax by either watching or listening to true crime. But see, true crime exists nonetheless. Whether it can be relaxing or not relaxing, whether it's palatable, not palatable. Wuthering Heights is that. It wants you, it wants you to be hooked by the brutality that it offers you. And not unrealistic brutality, but like very realistic, doable, and already done historically brutality. So the thing with Emerald Fennell's version of Wuthering Heights is that I also read the book when I was relatively young. I must have been 15. And the thing was, firstly, the text was, it's old-timey English. So I literally had to read every page 2 times to be able to even get the gist of what is being expressed in the page. But the way she made the movie, let me tell you, and I don't know how she properly captured the understanding that a reasonable, rational, logical, literary bent teenager, what a girl would like realize by reading a text like this back then. And again, I'm saying this teenager has to be rational and reasonable and like not wise beyond their years, but like wise enough for their years as well. And so the way she has interpreted things in this movie, I remember picturizing things like this about the book when I was 15 and I was reading it. And I knew it wasn't about love. I knew when Cathy is all like, yeah, that quote that, whatever souls mine and Heathcliff's are made of, they are the same. When I read that quote, I was like, firstly, I thought it was sinister. And two, I was like, okay, you're saying two souls are the same. From the text of this book, we can make out that both the main characters, Heathcliff, the male protagonist, and Cathy, the female protagonist, they have been raised in an environment of volatility, of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual abuse in a family environment which was not at all compatible with being a child. So when I read that Cathy is saying his and my soul are made of the same things, and when you read the book, you understand how, because of their conditioning, how they have raised themselves to be adults who are also repeating this cycle of abuse in some or the other way. In some or the other way, relationally, they are repeating the same kind of abuse. So I was like, when she says his and my soul are made of the same thing, I was like, you guys are bad people. If your and his soul are made of the same thing, you're just acknowledging the fact that both of you are shitty. So I was like, where's the romance in this? It's like one shitty person saying, yeah, I recognize the other one is also shitty. Yep.
Do you know what
That's
it
the
reminds
truth.
me of? And sorry, just to cut in real quick. It's so funny. This just came to me as you're going on this. And when I'm done, please continue on the soapbox because I'm loving this. But it reminds me of this whole thing. Because you and I are obviously in astrology. That's how we met online. Was through an astrology. I think somebody's astrology page. And of course, we don't live our lives by it, but it's pretty interesting. But the one thing that I hate within this spiritual community that people use to, I think, prey on individuals into getting them to buy readings of tarot and astrology is the concept of twin flames. I hate
Oh
it.
my
I hate
God.
it. I hate it. That's what that quote reminds me of. So honestly, maybe this whole thing, this twin flame like thing and movement, what if it maybe it started with Wuthering Heights and like romanticizing this toxic back and forth, this obsession. That's what it reminds me of. And like honestly, the whole twin flame thing is it's BS, y'all. Like, do not, if you think that it takes, lots of hardship and fighting and strife to like have a good relationship, then that's not your person. I'm sorry, but it's not. It's like mental abuse, really. Anyway.
Exactly. Again, a quote like this other quote that I really have like all of the quotes in these books, which are lovey ones, like even tragic lovey ones, they are just icky. If you just read the text and rationally think what could characters with personalities like this could actually manifest in the real world. And so this quote where Heathcliff is like, "Be with me always, take any form, drive me mad. Only do not leave me in this abyss where I cannot find you." God, it is unutterable. I cannot live without my life. I cannot live without my soul, Catherine. Now, I know a lot of guys are like just dying with my rendition of how I can yearn and pine and like say these kind of quotes. But again, think about what this quote is saying. Be with me always. Do not leave me in this abyss. What is this kind of trying to show? That one person doesn't know how to healthily cope with their life. So they think they can latch on and use another person as a crutch to be their salvation or to be their motivation or to be their purpose. I mean, I was 15 and I was like, this guy doesn't have a life. And that's why he's talking like this. Had he had a life, had he had self esteem, healthy self esteem, which wouldn't have been ripped away from him because I know 179-year-old text, but broad strokes of this story is that there is this family, the Earnshaw family. There is the patriarch. Patriarch has a daughter, Catherine. Patriarch goes and kind of rescues a slave or a slaved orphan boy who is named Heathcliff because he is kind of unruly and his origins are mysterious. His ethnicity is something that people of the Yorkshire moors are not aware of. And so this character Heathcliff, and I'm calling him a slave because he is an indentured laborer who cannot run away from the fact that he was one since childhood in an environment where he was not given any form of parenthood. He didn't see any form of parenthood, and he was raised to be either a pet for someone's amusement or to be working over there with utterly no sense of dignity, utterly no sense of equality. Forget equality, even just being able to have a life, human life with dignity. He was not even afforded that since he was a child. And now you can understand someone like this grows up, and if they feel they are rejected by the prospect of this romantic love that they thought that they have, I mean, it made me sad when I was reading this. Even as a 15-year-old, I was like, you know what, Heathcliff? You don't know who you are. And more importantly, you don't have an identity. And because you don't have an identity, do you even know the concept of I, myself, me? Do you even understand what self love could be? How you have to be a fully formed individual before you think you can invite another fully formed individual into your life in a healthy way? No, this guy doesn't want to be left in the abyss. What abyss? He has created that abyss, or he's creating situations to be trapped in that abyss. So, really, you read these lines, these are not piney, yearning, lovey lines. These are cry for helps. All of these tragic, these heart wrenching quotes where we think that the concept of twin flames is working, where one romantic pairing has karmic connections over and over in the immortal and in the mortal life. And they keep repeating these connections, but they are tied together. Like these kind of lofty ideas. This book is not trying to tell you these twin flamey lofty ideas. No, because firstly, I'm like, if a romantic pairing is coming back, say to Earth again and again and again because of karmic connections, I'm like, damn you twin soul, twin flame people, why aren't you learning your lesson? Like, why are you coming back? And you unhealthy people who couldn't resolve your karmic connections in your past, God knows how many lifetimes, you're coming, being involved with maybe other healthy individuals which have not had weird and unhealthy, toxic karmic connections, which are, holding your hearts together with a string or whatever. You come into our lives, okay, I mean, I'm not saying I'm one of those super healthy, no karmic connection souls, but that's the thing. Like, these romantic pairings, they don't learn anything, and then they keep like butting their unresolved things into the lives of other humans as well. And yeah, that's not that's in no way fun. And I'm not even talking about fun. No, fun sounds silly. Like, none of this book is pining and yearning and longing. Trust me. Everything this book is trying to say is just a cry of help from people who don't know who they are, who don't have the mechanisms to even understand how they should go about figuring out who they are and what do they want in their own lives, instead of just like, taking the first person who understands you and shows you basic decency and basic kindness and completely revolving your life around that person just because you were given basic decency and all of that. So yeah, this book is not romantic. This book is savagery. And it is savagery because this is how humans can be savage. And they can be savage even in situations of fortune, in situations of misfortune, in situations of being a Nepo baby or not being a Nepo baby. Yeah. Anyway, this is my whole thing. I'm myself pissed off. It's like how there are these memes which say that, oh, this like 30-year-old guy realized something that I realized when I was 12 years old. Exactly.
Yes.
I realized this book when I was 12 years old. Sorry, when I was 15 years old. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I'll search for meme and we'll put it somewhere here. Yeah.
Yes, for
So
real.
we are those girls who at 12, 15 clocked in what is slowly being clocked in by the other half of the population.
Yeah.
So that's what I clocked in at the age of 15, that this book is not like, it's not inspiring me to be like this. It's inspiring me to find all the ways in the world to not be like this and to recognize when this sort of a situation in the book, though very heightened in nature, it can, in a muted, realistic life, these kind of issues, they can create a lot of problems. So yeah, this book is not romantic. Oh my God.
So I prefer Jane Austen. I'm not discounting the Bronte sisters at all. I think that they did they did a few great works with, I think, very limited knowledge of the world and of relationships. So I don't think we should discount this at all. I think that we should look at it as what was going on in their lives, especially Emily's life, like what maybe inspired this, because she never married. I mean, as far as we know, she never was engaged. She didn't have a romance, that we know of. She thinks she knew Obsession. She had a teacher, I've been watching so much about them. Her and Charlotte kind of both had the same thing. Who was it? It was Charlotte that fell in love with the teacher when they went to go study in Belgium for a couple of years. But it was Emily that fell in love with the father of this family that she was the governess for, right? And finally she was let go because she was just it was very obvious that it was becoming a problem. But yeah, this kind of love and yearning is a lot different than what we see in like Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice and all that. And it do I think it's appropriate for young women in high school to be reading? I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say we should censor it, but I do feel like I'm hoping that nowadays there are more teachers pointing out these like relationship dynamics and looking at the issues of the time, maybe the issues of the author, and not just saying, "Oh, this is a great piece of work and this is a timeless romance." Right? I'm hoping that nowadays that it's being presented differently to young people. And where am I going with this? I'm going to have to do a lot of editing today. Because I've been cramming so much, and I'm just so fascinated by all of this. I'm fascinated by, because I'm really into psychology. Go figure. Scorpio stellium. I'm really fascinated with, again, how this novel came to be. Like I said, the author Emily was pretty reclusive. That we know of. She didn't have any like major romantic relationships. She didn't have many relationships. Her sisters were her best friends. She didn't really make friends in school. She had a hard time holding down teaching jobs and governess jobs because she wasn't into it. And of course, that's what you were expected to do back in the day. If you didn't have money, if you didn't have a husband, you were a governess, you know, you were a teacher at a school. And I really wonder, and I'm not accusing her, family or her father of doing anything, but you have to wonder, where does a young woman, like, from her background with her minimal experience of romantic relationships, where does she get this from? I mean, and I think it's amazing and it's fascinating that she came up with all of this in her head. I also, having watched all of these documentaries this past couple weeks, I thought in my mind, like, I really hope that how do I put this without getting like canceled? I hope that she didn't have any kind of untoward relationships with either her father or her brother. Now, no one's intonated that, right? And I know I'm going there, but it's like people say like Heathcliff might be based on herself. Heathcliff might be based on her brother, her brother who was a little bit older than her. Very tumultuous life. Her brother also had a very like torrid relationship with a married woman. He was off, I believe, also teaching. The whole family was into writing, and they were actually, for having come from Nowheresville at the time in Yorkshire, they were all pretty educated. They went off to school. They were educated by their father, by their aunt who helped to take care of them after their mother passed away. But where was all of this coming from? And that's what concerns me about thinking about the author writing this. And she wasn't like super young when she wrote. I think she was in her 20s. I mean, so for back then, whereas the life expectancy was only 25 or 30. So it's, I guess we could say to us it's a young person. But where did she get these experiences to be able to write about them so well? And I think it's awesome, but I'm concerned for her. Like, what did she go through that we don't know about? And I do think that people, especially young women reading this, need to think about that, because it's how do I put this? It's like I said, it's not just some love story and something to like put on a pedestal and think, oh, I want something like that. You know what I mean? Even we were making fun of, you brought this up, and I totally forgot that this book is mentioned in Twilight, that it's like Bella's favorite book, right? And look what kind of like I mean, look at Bella. Like our emo heroine of the Twilight series. It's like, I don't think she's anything to look up to either. And the fact that this is her favorite book says a lot about her. Not derogatory, I'm just saying. But, and again, I'm going to be doing a lot of rambling because I'm having sinus issues are messing up my brain today. But yeah, I just think looking at this has been a really, even though like I said, I don't want to read it because I don't want to be depressed. I've heard everybody else talking about this, but I really love doing this psychological deep dive. A, where the author was coming from, and B, why does this love story endure so much today, especially with women over the last 179 years, saying that this was their favorite novel, this was their favorite romance novel. And there's nothing wrong with that, but why? What is it in I guess us that yearns for this type of like friends to lovers to enemies to like this enduring obsession that lasts beyond this earthly plane.
So the whole thing, that how the author Emily Brontë, being in her 20s and living a relatively sheltered life and all of that, how could she have come up with a work which is honestly very contradictory to what someone having an average normal life in their 20s, they would not be experiencing any kind of themes which could result into a book like Wuthering Heights. But then again, I think, don't most great women writers kind of have a mental breakdown? Because just last month, Agatha Christie, yeah, our last month's book, the world's best selling novelist in the entire world, Agatha Christie, she was very young. She was in her mid 30s when she went through like a life changing I would say, nervous breakdown or a mental breakdown. She completely crashed out. And the events that led to her real life crash out was because of this building up of stress from so many parts of life that she was not able to handle on her own. And also the fact that there were certain tragedies which were striking in her life, like the death of her mother and having to deal with infidelity by her husband. And the so many factors contributed into even Agatha Christie going into a fugue state. So, and then again, let's take the example of Sylvia Plath. I
I was
mean,
just gonna say,
Sylvia
yep.
Plath,
Hmm.
yeah, Sylvia Plath even had access to rehab. And this was back then. Like, Sylvia Plath is, one second, which era is she in?
Like 1930s, 1940s.
Yeah. So Sylvia Plath is like, her primary works would have come out during 1940s and 50s and a little part of 60s. But she had access to a rehab. She had access to words like depression. I've read her book, her sort of autobiographical novel, The Bell Jar, which is kind of based entirely on her life. And yeah, in that book, she has access to medication. She has access to vocabulary like depression. She has access to a rehab center. So, and like, again, why did she have a crash out? Again, because of so many factors that one human brain could only handle for so long. And I feel, yeah, maybe because Emily Bronte was writing such crazy stuff because of a confluence of too many factors which would have, like, created a dissonance in her mind. And you know what? A lot of Wuthering Heights is the way it is written, it's like a fever dream of repeated psychosis. That is the general aura of the book. That's why the book feels haunting, because it's like your mind haunting you. It is kind of like being in a fugue state of psychosis. And it just so happens that maybe a brilliant brain like Emily Bronte's, which could have been neurodivergent in nature, instead of just going into a complete crash out and going completely into psychosis, she went into that and created a universal classic which will endure for so many years to come. And I also think why women are into this book is because I think the book allows us to feel. It allows us to feel rage. It allows us to feel that it's okay to be a villain, that it's possible to be a villain. That's the thing. That it's possible for a female protagonist like Cathy to just be cruel for no intentional reason, for no thought. It's almost like living in a conditioned life where cruelty is everyday okay occurrences. So they don't even strike to you as being unhealthy or toxic. But I think, yeah, this book allows girls and women to feel that there are these unsavory feelings which are not going to go away anywhere. Like, rage will not disappear on its own, hatred will not disappear on its own, casual cruelty will not disappear on its own. But having it acknowledged in a text and being able to engage with it, it just feels liberating. I think that's why it's a classic that a lot of women kind of gravitate towards. Because, see, Jane Austen, also considering her life circumstances, she lived a life which, of course, came with its own highs and lows and trials and tribulations. But she came from a family environment. She came from a conditioned environment which was completely different from that of the Bronte families. And so imagine if you are a high IQ, borderline genius or fully genius person in environments or having life experiences which you are either too young to handle or you don't have the coping mechanisms to handle. Like, what will all of these factors result in? It will result into a woman like Emily Bronte in her 20s having a psychotic episode, maybe having multiple psychotic episodes, which at that point of time, with no name, idea of medication, no idea of mental health. I mean, people refuse even now to acknowledge mental health. So imagine 1850s, what a time to like even be going through something like this, and on top of that being a woman and going through this. Would it even have been acknowledged as anything more than, it wouldn't have been even acknowledged as hysteria, because the word hysteria came in the early 1900s with Sigmund Freud. So there was absolutely no language. And it's like how you write in your journal, like how uh, how I have seen the concept of people like adopting journaling in their lives, where they like take all of that unresolved, pent up feelings and they put it into their diary. I think this is what Emily Bronte did. She just had a more brilliant mind, so she created characters and she used her life experience and she created that into a book. It just so happens that most people aren't brilliant enough to create it into a work of art. But yeah, she delivered her pain in the form of art. And that lets us women, us girls in this contemporary world know that it's okay to have unsavory feelings. It's okay. And, as they say, shame breathes in the dark. I think this book just helps to unshame what darkness can be. Like it helps to like be able to dissect what actual human darkness can be and how it doesn't have to be like pushed under the rug in the name of shame and then never be spoken about again. Because that's the thing. If you try to control something, it explodes. Yeah, it's something like that. Where
Yeah.
was I going with
No, that's
this?
good. No, you're fine. No, no, that was really good. What I also wanted to bring up, and again, she was youngish, and yes, there are nowadays we have not just armchair psychiatrists like ourselves, but real psychologists and psychiatrists looking at her. That's another one of the videos that I watched on YouTube by reputable sources. And by the way, I will be linking everything that I watched in the description box below. So there's a psychiatrist who did one of the videos, and he's like, look, he hadn't before this, he hadn't read Wuthering Heights, and with I don't remember when this was made, fairly recently, so I don't know if this was made in anticipation of kind of going along with the film, but he was very interested in looking at her because people had said, maybe she was neurodivergent, maybe she had,
Yeah.
they call it autism spectrum disorder over in the UK, ASD. In the States we don't use the word disorder because it's just on the spectrum, our brains work differently. So he was looking at it from the point of, could she have been on the autism spectrum? And because there's a lot of traits that she has, because there are accounts written about her, not only by her sister Charlotte, but by close friends. Charlotte had some close friends that were friendly with Emily, but they came and visited enough. And of course, one of them especially, she wrote an account of the sisters, and the traits that she was speaking of about Emily very much could lead someone who's trained in psychology to think, okay, maybe this person is on the spectrum. Just, very she kept to herself a lot, besides with, her family and her siblings. She was very choosy on who she would open up to and be friends with. She was always seen as like the odd one. Like when they studied in Belgium, her sister Charlotte really wanted to try to keep up with the other young women of her age and wear the fashions that they were wearing. Emily just didn't care. And she was like, you know what, take me or leave me. And so she was always made fun of for, being frumpy and dowdy and the oddball. And she would also like act out at times, that were, I guess, questionable to some people. But I think too, when you have someone who is on the autism spectrum. And again, I am not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist. I'm very interested in this sort of thing. But a lot of times when you have someone like this that has all these, they may seem calm on the surface and quiet, but they have all these emotions and feelings going on the inside. They don't know how to express themselves. And so there comes it as outbursts, right? So there are accounts kind of this as well with her. So that's why we're thinking that. Also, in terms of that, maybe because with her obsession with, the father of the family that she worked for, and maybe she'd had other young men or even young women, I don't know, that she'd had feelings for. Of course, maybe she's drawing on this unspoken like love and obsession, and she didn't know how to, I don't know, she didn't know how to go about it. She was very socially awkward, so maybe she wouldn't have known how to flirt with a guy. um and maybe it was just all this pent up love and rage and obsession, and not knowing how to love, how to show love, that this is
Or even how to
what
accept rejection.
it,
Like
that
even
too,
accepting.
yeah. Yeah, because there was a lot of folks who are on the autism spectrum who have, what is it called? It's like called rejection sensitivity, you know? And I mean, I
Yeah.
can attest to that. I've got that as well. I mean, not as much as maybe some other people, but myself being on one other end of the spectrum, I completely understand that. And I understand getting so overwhelmed with feelings and things, but not being able to sort the feelings and what is this? And then just exploding, right? I mean, I don't have like outbursts, but I've been there. You know what I mean? I've been there. So I do understand her in a way. Anyway, so I just think looking at her psychology and looking at her upbringing, also in terms of tragedy and loss, her parents had, God, like, and I know this was a thing back then, but they had 6 children. Now, I don't know if there were any other children that didn't, that died in infancy, but her mother and father had 6 kids. Her dad was a vicar. He was a curate at a parish in Yorkshire. He actually was Irish. So they're half Irish. So I kind of get that, like, there's this whole thing with like the Irish that they're self-deprecating and that they're, kind of more on the more depressive side and things like that. And Irish people talking about it in a joking way, but there's something to it. I mean, the Irish have had um, a lot of shit happened to them. Not only were they invaded by, the Normans and then the English, and their way of life was completely like cast aside and being invaded and being colonized. And then you have the potato famine and all of that really, yeah, right. All of that,
Shout
they're
out
fighting
British.
that
Shout out British
colonization.
brutality.
But they
Shout
say,
out.
a lot of a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists have said now that shit's in your DNA, like this hardship. So
Yeah.
anyway, coming to background on my point, I think just being Irish too, like you have this like they had it in their DNA just to kind of be more maybe on the depressive side on top of having a hard life. So I'll get back to the parents. The parents had 6
Yeah.
kids. By the way, if you look at their birth dates, oh my gosh. So there weren't just the 3 sisters and the brother. There were 5 sisters. So the eldest sister was Mariah. Now it's spelled Maria, Maria, but they say it as Mariah. That was also the mother's name. So, and I think too, back then it was a thing to like name your first daughter after the mom. I don't know. But by the time the eldest Mariah was 8, their mother, Mariah, passed away, leaving the father, who is the vicar in this little town, actually, this quickly growing uh, industrialized part of Yorkshire called Howth. Um, he was left with 6 kids under the age of 8. So we have Mariah, then we have shoot, now I forgot the other one. Let me look her up real quick because they're not mentioned a whole lot
Shout.
because they died so young. Let's see. Oh yeah, Elizabeth was the second one. So Mariah was born in 1814. Elizabeth was born in 1815. Then we have Charlotte, 1816, Patrick, 1817, Emily, 1818, and then Anne 2 years later in 1820, but actually she was born 18 months after Emily. So you have like all these little kids. And I mean, we're talking, there's the whole thing about Irish twins because they say like Irish people, well, the stereotype is the Catholic ones, which obviously their father wasn't Catholic. He was Northern Irish. So he was Protestant, but having like Irish twins, like having kids back to back to back. So their poor mom passed away when the kids were 8 and younger. And they have literally 6 Irish twins. I like to call them Irish sextuplets because they were all born so close together. And the mom did pass away from what we would now consider to be some kind of disease or cancer of her uterus. Maybe not because she had 6 kids. I mean, it was pretty common back then. But anyway, but the hardships of growing up, then when the girls were young, eldest 4 girls, so all but Anne, were sent to this like boarding school. And it wasn't like the nicest and the best. And apparently the conditions were really bad. So some of the accounts I was reading and watching about, some said they came down with tuberculosis, some said typhus. They're two different things. So I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna go with the tuberculosis because I've heard more of that. But the 2 eldest girls came down with tuberculosis. So the dad pulled all 4 of them out of the school. But after coming back home, Elizabeth and Mariah passed away at 11 and 10 years old. So then that left Charlotte as the eldest sister at age 9, right? And so they've got no mom. They've got the dad who's also, responsible for being the parish vicar, which a lot actually goes into that. He had to call on the mother's sister, who I guess never married, because they called her Aunt Branwell, and the mom's maiden name was Branwell. But also I guess that's why they named the son, let's see, the son,
brother?
well, they named him Patrick Branwell.
Yeah. Yeah, their brother's
Oh,
name is Branwell as well.
anyway, so you have all of that going on. Then on top of it, you have the brother having like tumultuous relationships. He also got involved with, like I said, he was having an affair with a married woman from a family. Like he was working for, I guess he was a teacher or something like that. Kind of like I think a governess, but a guy. Anyway, he got into opium, laudanum, alcoholism. So the girls had to help take care of their brother. Meanwhile, the town that they lived in Howth, and it's spelled like, it looks like Hayworth, but how they say it is Howth. It was a rapidly growing area in Yorkshire. So Yorkshire was I guess I'll kind of touch on it now. The Industrial Revolution, which again, in the States, we don't get all of this British history. So remember episode 5, we're talking about Industrial Revolution in the United States starting in the latter part of the 1800s into the early 1900s. Well, the Industrial Revolution, globally, really started in the late 1700s to early 1800s in the area of Yorkshire in England. So they were the first ones to have like these steam engines and these textile factories, because in the area of England, I mean, there's coal, there's iron ore, there's obviously like wool. So there are a lot of these factories and things ended up popping up out there first, mining, things like that. And with that brought more people to towns. But some of these cities like Howth did not have the infrastructure for the population to grow by over 3 times, what it was like, from the beginning of the 1800s into the mid 1800s. I mean, it went from like a population of like 1,000 to 3,000 something people. Now with this, you have more people, which means you have more waste, right? So they didn't have like a good wastewater. They didn't have a wastewater system at all. So you have all of these people coming there. You have all this waste coming from factories. You have all this waste coming from people. It's going into their water supply on top of there was, a very large cemetery that had been there for hundreds of years. That's like up the hill. Well, when the rain comes and the water comes down, it goes through the graveyard and it goes down into the water system. So you have all of this shit getting into their water system. These girls had been consuming this since they were young. They actually weren't originally from Howth, but they moved there very young. So, Charlotte and Emily said that they were never the same after they went to this girls' school. They blamed it on that. But at that time, they didn't realize that they probably were poorly and sickly, and they were small for their ages, their sizes. They were underdeveloped because of having grown up with like drinking this wastewater with like human waste, dead bodies, et cetera, et cetera. And now in like modern days, I mean, we know that can affect so much more than your physical health. I mean, that could literally affect you mentally. So there were so many factors. Yeah.
Do you even have to be neurodivergent if your physical conditions are so bad that they can in itself create so much inflammation in your body where you don't like end up becoming an healthy adult and maybe add these living conditions plus brilliancy plus genius, what's gonna happen? I mean,
Yeah. Plus loss, heartache,
yeah,
rejection. Exactly. And so I'm not vilifying her at all or vilifying them. I'm just trying to understand like where they were coming from at the time. And again, yes, this was shocking at the time, this type of a book being written and, a woman like that a woman could come up with these ideas and these concepts and these lines like, you were quoting. But the thing was when their books were originally published, they published under male pseudonyms. It wasn't
yeah,
until after Emily passed away. Well, all of them died. They all died. Charlotte was the only one left, right? And then she didn't live too much longer either. Then she republished her sister's better known works. However, she may have edited them because what she did was when she republished them and said, "We are Acton Bell, Ellis Bell," and what was the whatever
Current
the
well.
name, Charlotte, yeah, Curran Bell, that she also then she did forwards in the books and she apologized. She said, "Oh, she kind of she dumbed her and her sisters down so people wouldn't be so shocked and outraged at the books. They're like, look, she's like, look, we don't know a whole lot. We weren't very educated. Yes, they were actually. So she undersold them to basically sell their works. But
Yeah,
I'm interested in what were the works like before she supposedly edited them. Also, there is word that there was another book that was just about finished or that was finished that was by Emily, but Charlotte got rid of it. She destroyed it after her death. So we will never know what Emily's other work was. And maybe it's because Charlotte decided, "Ooh, we don't want to, in her way, we're not going to fault her for this, but maybe for her, she thought it would be too shocking and she didn't want to leave like a stain upon their family name, right? So
yeah.
anyway, they
And
went through a
also,
shit ton.
the
Yeah.
thing was, even she had to make the works palatable in order for them to like reach the masses. The same way that all the adaptations of Wuthering Heights, they're just trying and trying and trying to make it palatable for the masses. And it's just refusing to be palatable.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
can
And
understand Charlotte Bronte was like, okay, guys, we'll tone down a little bit. I know we are brilliant. I know our works are amazing. I will dumb it down for you, general
yeah,
masses.
exactly. I guess to wrap it up, and yeah, Emily passed away at 31, not too long after her book was first published. Uh what was it? Tuberculosis. Then Anne, the youngest, passed away. So Charlotte had to help take care of her and all that. Then Charlotte came back, lived with the dad, had to just live with herself. She did end up getting engaged to the curate at the parsonage. She figured, well, I'm in my early 30s, might as well. But then unfortunately, at age 38, she did also pass away from illness. But again, it was likely after a lifetime of just those living conditions, right? And
Yeah.
supposedly, they think that she was also pregnant as well. But what's interesting is that it's like all these 6 kids, and there's no one to carry on the line. You know what I mean? So it sucks. Like no one can say like I'm the great granddaughter of, this Bronte sister. However, there's a rumor that the brother might have fathered a child out of wedlock with some woman. So maybe there is some of that DNA. But then again, I don't know. Like I said, if we're coming to the idea of like your DNA can actually carry trauma and stuff like that, maybe it's kind of better off that nobody that they didn't carry on and procreate, just like Cathy and Heathcliff. You got
Yeah.
all that generational trauma, like psychologically, but physically, if you physically have it in your DNA and you're just passing it on and passing it on. So I kind of thought like, well, maybe better off. And and I also want to mention too. So the dad, because I was like, how's their dad a vicar? He wanted to be a vicar in England. He's from Ireland. Northern Irish, right? Well, at the time, I think Ireland was just Ireland, but obviously Northern Ireland is Protestant. He won a scholarship to go to Cambridge. When he went to Cambridge, he didn't want to seem too Irish. So he
Mm,
changed his last name because I was like, are they German or something? Because you got like that umlaut.
mm.
No, his last name is Brontë. and it came from this, shortened Gaelic word. His family, their tribe way back in the day, in like I don't know, the earlier times, the Gaelic times, whatever, they were scribes, they were writers. So the whole
Oh.
family, it turns out, I mean, even the dad used to write poetry. When he was at Cambridge, he wrote this, he fell in love with a woman when he went to Cambridge. He fell in love with obviously an English woman there, and he wanted to marry her. He was so in love with her, and he wrote her this poem to propose, and she turned him down because she didn't want to be married to a vicar. So what did he do? He like meets some other chick, which ends up being the Bronte sisters' mother. He uses the same poem, just changes some of the names and the words in it, and he proposes to her with it. And she came from a little bit of money, but she thought it was very commendable. She thought it was very pious and good for her to marry a man of the cloth, right? So
Yes.
luckily her family did have some money. Oh, and get this. So after their mom passed away, and he's got, 6 kids under the age of 8, at some point, like soon after that, he writes to his first girlfriend who turned him down his proposal. And he writes to her and is like, hey, so I've got 6 kids and I really need help. Just wanted to know, like, would you want to get married? Like, you want to take me up on it this time? And she's like, no. And apparently he was like, he was proposing to women because he needed a mom for his kids. And then finally the mom's sister, Aunt Branwell, came. Now it sounds like she never got married. So it sounds like she may have obviously had some of the fortune from their family, right? Their dad, who was a merchant. So when Aunt Branwell finally passed away, the girls were in their 20s and they had already written some of their works and, put them together. They each received what would be now around $500,000 in today's times, each from their aunt. So the girls used this money to publish themselves under their pseudonyms.